What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blade Dive. How we doing out there in the world of grooming operations, terrain park world, snowmaking, excavation, whatever you're doing in your business or at your resort to make things happen? Thank you for bringing us along and tuning in, listening to what we are talking about on the show today. I got a really rad guest, and it was a really cool chat, so I'm excited for you to listen. Before we jump into it, I want to thank our sponsor, Prenoth. They back the Blade Dive, and I've been excited to have their support for quite some time now. I've also welcomed getting to know them and who they are and what they're all about, and that's just been rad. So again, thank you so much, Prenoth, for your support. None of this is possible without you listening, so thank you again for tuning in and bringing us along. If you want to know a really great way to support us that's cost effective, follow us on social media at The Blade Dive. Tag us in your photos. Let us know what you got going on. Leave us a comment. Interact with the posts. Tag us in your stories. Just, stay in touch. Drop us a line. Okay. My guest today is Andreas Silbernagl. And if you don't know Andreas has pretty much done it all. And he is the dude at Prenoth. He basically manages all of the demo operations, deliveries, course constructions for some super ski areas and World Cup events, and has heavily been involved with R&D with the company. But prior to that was really doing some big things in some big trucks, excavation works. So man knows his way around the machine. Let's just say that. He's got a passion for working outside, but he's also got a really unique perspective of what it is to be an operator in today's industry, and also the technology that's coming and the technology that we've come from. Yeah, so I'm gonna really wrap this up because I've rambled on long enough, and let's just dive into it. Episode 37.
Give it the juice. Already.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to, I wouldn't want to call it season 2 just yet, but it is a continuation of what we have been doing on the Blade Dive, and that's having amazing conversations with amazing people. I'm excited to be back in the virtual booth. We have welcomed a new kiddo to the family, and so we took some time off to do that. But beyond that, I've got somebody incredible with me in the booth, and that is Andreas Silbernagl, all the way over from Italy right now, talking to me. And if you do not know Andreas, I would call him kind of a jack of all trades, but he's a legend in the industry with respect to skill set and how he operates a machine and represents Prenoth as a company. But there isn't anything that he really can't do behind the sticks. So we're going to get into talking about that. But Andreas, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Parker. Thanks for having me. If you translate it to English, it would be the silver nail.
Oh, shit.
Don't ask me how that name came up. I don't know. Mine isn't silver.
Wow. So in English, it is the silver nail.
I mean, I have so much jokes with John Swartz about it because he couldn't spell my last name, and I spent quite some days with John around snowcats, and there is a kind of swearing word in Quebec. It's tabernacle. And John sometimes, when we got mad about something together, we had really good times together. He called me always, "Hey, tabernacle." Hey, tabernacle. Because he just couldn't spell my last name. But
oh man,
I mean,
well, it's funny. I could picture Schwartz standing there saying something like that too. You know the deal. We kick this thing off with a special guest question, and this special guest question is pretty cool. So you cool with kicking it off that way?
Yes, of course.
All right, let's do it. It is coming from nobody other than Mr. Kurt Epler himself.
Hello, Andreas. This is Kurt Epler. Hope you are doing well, my friend. My question is, as you travel across the world to all the different areas and meet many different types of operators, what are the things that are the same with all operators you meet, and what challenges do all operators share all the way across the world? Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Kurt, for the question. I miss you, my friend. Well, getting straight to the answer. There's one important thing all over the places. So we all speak different languages, but at the end we all speak about the same things, you know. So the only change in the topic, there is no differences in the topics. It's just the language what changes. It doesn't matter if you're in Iran, in the mountains where I've been, in Pakistan, either in the US, in Canada, Russia, Italy, Switzerland. I mean, we are all talking about the same things. We all face the same problems. We face the same situations with that kind of frozen water we got to deal with. You know, sometimes it's more frozen, sometimes less. All of you know that's the East Coast, West Coast story going on. You face those situations pretty much all over the places. So the challenges are, yeah, machine breaks down, having hard times, a lot of hours in behind the sticks in the seat, and but at the end, it all links us together. I think most of us love what we are doing, and that's how we deal with it. And it doesn't matter what kind of language you talk. At the end, the conversations are always the same. So I think that's something I like to see, and I think it's related to the fact that mountain people is the same pretty much everywhere. Yeah, they wear different clothes, they talk another language, but at the end, the mindset it's quite similar. I think we are all formed or shaped by our environment, which is the mountain and the snow and the cold weather.
I think that's what happens more often than not. I think people forget that we are similar, fighting the same battles, going through the same issues like you're discussing with me. All those constraints, all the issues, all the weather problems that we try to navigate and muddle through so that we can have a finished product out there for people to ski and ride on. But not that there's a right or a wrong answer, but I was curious as to what you would say just based on you've been a lot of places. It's not as if you've spent your career locked down in one resort or one country. You've traveled the world and you've experienced different personalities and different pieces of equipment and different constraints and different snow types. But to come back to it all and say that yeah, we're all experiencing the same thing. We all focus with or have to deal with the same problems. It's pretty deep, man.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't want to switch gears too fast, but I do want to ask you about maybe what was off a spin-off of Kurt's question. What was your favorite place that you ever visited that you were a part of in a machine, whether it was overseas in Europe or whether it was overseas in North America or anywhere else? Where was your favorite place that you've ever been?
Wow, that's a really tough question. I would distinguish a little. I mean, just from the nature or environment point of view or place point of view, one of the most amazing places for sure I've been was Whistler. I mean, BC, it's known as an awesome place, and the vertical drop is just something breathtaking. You know, you're up on the peak, and within 1 hour, you're down at the sea, and then there are plenty of places in Scandinavia, and I couldn't really say that there is one best place I've been. I mean, there have been so many super places, and then I link that many times to the people I meet there as well. You know, maybe you've been on a smaller mountain, but you met amazing people there, so that makes the whole place like a perfect place for me, you know, to be. And so far, I mean, I've experienced some bad place. I wouldn't call them bad place, but less exciting places. But for sure, there is not one big number one what I could say. There would be at least like 50 places I'd like to get back any time.
I've never been to Whistler. I've said that before. I definitely need to get up there and check that place out. So many people that have been on the show have already spent time in and around that resort, and now you and everybody just keeps talking about it. So I just need to get over it and get up there. Well, now switching gears, figuratively and kind of if it is manual transmission, but I got to be honest, man, I kind of fanboyed out on the Suburban because First of all, for everybody listening, the Suburban is not a 2020 model vehicle. It is definitely I think it's it looks like 70s or 80s model. It's an older model vehicle, but it is tricked out in a very subtle way. And you and I have kind of chatted about what its purpose is, but I would love for you to share how you came about getting the vehicle if you can share that. And then secondly, did you always picture it as kind of like the camping vehicle, or did it evolve into that? Because that thing is, I'm super jealous. I've already admitted that.
Just get back to your first question. Yeah, it is a manual gear box, so no automatic transmission, and it is from 78, so it got right the same age as I do. And yeah, it was funny story. I was always looking. I'm into U.S. cars since ever, big V8s, and so so cheers, Greta from Sweden. So it's not that I'm not looking after the environment, but I love just V8 and V2.
Yeah.
So I was always looking into those trucks and stuff, and finally it came up this opportunity about this Suburban from '78, which was owned by the volunteer firefighters right the town next to our headquarters here, and those guys was just want to get rid of it since it was old and not much miles. It got 9,000 miles on, literally 9,000 miles on,
Wow.
because it was most of the time it was just parked in the fire department, and well, that was the truck of my choice, so it was kind of a right moment at the right spot. So I bought this truck, and yeah, you could see how it is built up, because it was more like a tool car or whatever. It got a water pump on and several tools. So I have those curtains, how you call those, roll ups in the back,
Yep. Yep.
And then it was a natural evolution, just to, okay, we have those roll ups. What do we got to do with this truck? And then I start to put a bed in the back, and then I bought some more camping gear, and suddenly we got kind of, how you call it today. The fancy name is an overlanding rig. I
Yep.
would just call it a big truck with a bed in. So, but yeah, definitely, it's I love to cruise around in that thing, and it's just the best time of my life, just sitting with my wife and with my son in that truck and just cruising around our mountains and enjoying the camping life and so on. So it wasn't meant to be a camping rig, but it just evolved to that by nature.
Well, we got to share a picture with everybody listening, so we'll have to link up and do that. But for those tuned in, it's picture the Chevrolet or the GMC ad, and you're not looking at the flatlands or the Rocky Mountains, or if you want to do the picturesque type of photo in the background. Here's this Suburban tricked out camping rig. It's got this really cool paint job on the side, the like mountains and stuff in black. It's sick. Big tires, big wheels, and in the background you've got the Italian mountains and these rivers and this. It's not like I'm sure you probably take it on, the occasional spot that's easy to get to, but you've taken it to places that look fun as hell. And you've got this picture of this thing, and it's a vehicle with roll up sides. That's what it's exactly that. It's roll up doors out of the side of it, and a bed in the back, and a spot for the family to kick it and hang out. And it's not like I said, it's not a newer model vehicle. It's a 78 Suburban that looks just damn well. Taken such good care of, it looks like. Yeah,
Yeah, and
super jealous.
it drives like a new one, since it got
Wow.
now probably I got like 20,000 miles on it. It's a 43 years old rig, and 20,000 miles on it. It runs fantastic.
This is still the original engine.
Everything original,
Wow.
all one by one, all matching numbers, everything. And honestly, I don't run it during the winter months, since I don't have the time anyways, but I don't want to expose it to the salty roads and so on.
Yeah.
So it doesn't shows even one spot of rust. So almost embarrassing.
I'm surprised that Prenoth hasn't tried to commandeer that thing and say, "Hey, well, you should bring that up here for this event we got. We'll put a sticker on it or something."
We try to be environment friendly, and the Suburban, maybe it's not the best occasion to showcase that one. So, that's my private thing.
Oh, I love that, man. Well, I love that truck, man. It's such a rad truck. I
Yeah,
had mine was a pile, but it was a '76 K5 Blazer. It was all
yeah,
hooptied out inside it had the '93 Chevrolet Silverado engine inside of it with the same '93 dash. It was all zip tied to the firewall on the inside. Oh, super hoopty, but I made it work. But so yeah, I love the round headlights. I have a great appreciation for those older models. I was the kid who converted that model that I had into the square front end because I thought the square looked cooler at the time. When nah, I was
yeah,
wrong. I was wrong.
yeah,
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 I was wrong.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, a monster. I love it,
It
and
is
my family loves it. So
super cool.
weird. Yeah.
Well, speaking of family and kind of growing up as you, as much as you're willing to share, unpack, let us in on that story. What it was like growing up as Andreas.
Yeah, well, I was growing up in the Italian Dolomites, so pretty much in the west end of the Dolomites, southwest end of the Dolomites, so in the middle of the mountains. And just getting back to the podcast with Elijah Hamilton, so I grew up in a typical yodel community, as he called it. So I found it funny. It was funny to hear that. So it's a village up on the mountains, surrounded by ski areas. Actually, all the Dolomiti super ski areas are around there. Famous place, but still a village. It's not crowded by big hotels. Still kind of decent landscape. So I grew up there, started to ski with when I was 3 years old because that was the most popular sport we could do. So summer it was soccer or bicycle, and winter it was just natural skiing. So everybody skied up on those places. So we got out of school, went on a ski hill, 5 minutes by walk, and yeah, grew there. Went to school for 8 years, and then I figured out, okay, that's maybe not my deal. So I went to the start to work as a mechanic in a car shop
Huh,
when I was 15. And we have a kind of different system here. So you got the opportunity to get somehow a degree as a mechanic, but
very
that
cool.
means you work for 4 days a week, and one day a week you go to school.
Wow.
So I did that, and after 3 years, I made that. Later, I did all the truck and excavator licenses and went to the army. I was in the army. I was in a mountain airborne unit. It's kind of similar thing like the Rangers in the U.S. So special forces. Was there for a while and went was also involved in some NATO missions in Bosnia during the
Wow.
civil war there. Came back from there, start to run big trucks, cranes, and excavators because I always loved to do that, and that's what my father did all its life. And of course, it came natural since we had quite long winters here. During the winter months, there wasn't much to do with excavators or cranes, so the next thing was just being up on the mountain running a snowcat. And one of my best buddies was grooming manager at my home place, and yeah, started there as snowcat operator and snowmaker because back in the days 20 years ago we got to deal with everything, so we were snowmakers and cat operators working 26 hours a day. But
Yeah.
it was one of the best schools I could ever do. And it was just natural since the workshop on top of the mountain, it was a 10 minutes drive from my home door. So that's how I got into that business and loving skiing, of course. Then it was just no brainer. And yeah, well, then I went to the east in Europe, to Ukraine, Met my wife there and came back, got a fixed job, and suddenly Prino came up with the job offer, and yeah, I took it, and I'm here now since 10 years.
The rest is history, kind of
So
deal, huh?
yeah, yeah,
Is your wife
exactly.
Italian too?
No, she's from Ukraine.
Very cool.
She's a tough Ukrainian girl. So
How did you convince her to come back to Italy?
that wasn't too big of a deal. So first day she came into my village, it was like end of April, and I told her how nice the summer and the spring is here, and she was never in Italy before, and enjoyable warm weather, all green, and went to bed. Next day we wake up and there's like 2 feet of fresh powder outside the door. Oh, we had kind of bad start. But
I
then,
thought,
yeah, she figured out it isn't too bad.
yeah. Well, I have to ask about the army too. Was that kind of an offset to something, or was that always your vision to go and do something like that as well?
No, we had the mandatory army at the days back in the days. It was everybody had to be either in army or to work for a social organization like rescue, whatever, firefighters. So it was mandatory to do at least 1 year in something of this. And I went to army, and I knew from the very beginning if I have to go to the army, I would like to do something interesting, and for sure airborne. It's not too bad because I was already flying paragliders and all that stuff, so it was kind of a good choice. And that's how it came. At the end I had the choice to be in the special force and going to Bosnia. That wasn't mandatory, but that was my choice. But to be in the army, somehow it was mandatory,
Yeah.
so you had to do a year. But it was I have to say it was always a good life school, looking back. Not only for me, everybody tells you that. And you got the chance to do truck driving license and all those stuff, so it was kind of okay. Was okay,
Do you-
definitely, and definitely it was a big experience.
yeah. So you actually went in. Did you go into combat? Did you ever get shot at?
Yeah, yeah, we had
Holy.
some easy combats there. Not too big of combats, not tanks shooting around, but yeah,
Yeah.
we had some gunfires on weekly base. Yeah.
Yeah. I've always whenever and I can't speak from a complete empathetic approach here because I've never experienced anything like that, but when I'm entering into something, whether it be operating a machine or a new skill that I'm trying to learn, I'm going to school. I know those are probably bad examples or analogies, but instead of being intimidated, I guess that's probably a better way to say it. Instead of being intimidated, or instead of wanting to quit or being scared, however you want to term it, I've always attempted to have the mindset of what I think would be a soldier that would be entering battle and to function as somebody who's going to get shot at. I have always kind of envisioned that mindset of like, okay, cool. I'm just going to go ahead and think that I'm going to get shot at, or that I'm just already going to be dead. I'm going to not even fear that aspect of the approach of whatever I'm going to endure right now. I'm just going to function as I need to so that I can get the job done safely, or so that I can learn whatever I need to learn, so that I can talk how I need to talk. Things like that. I don't know if that was true for you in entering a situation like that, but
Yeah,
that's kind of how I've.
definitely,
Is that it? Do you think that'd be
definitely.
correct?
Yeah, so it's always, especially in these special occasions, maybe the 10 minutes before you're kind of concerned, whatever, but as soon as it starts, your brain switches, and then you're just focused on, getting out of the situation somehow. It's not that you think about what I'm doing here or something, because in that case, it would be over. And I would say we were all well prepared, even if you can't be prepared 100% in such situations. But it is as you mentioned, as soon you pop in the situation, then just your brain either it switches off. I couldn't tell you what
Yeah.
it is, but it switch. There is a switch. There's the button who pops, and then it just works. And that for sure was a good life school for me, being afterwards in the job I'm currently. You get somewhere and you gotta just function. and then you enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's funny aspect about it. Related to my today's job, I enjoyed. At these days, maybe we did not always enjoy it, but we had to function.
Yeah.
But definitely makes your brain work in that way. Also for future tasks.
Yeah. I was gonna say, are you a big uniform guy?
I mean, it was funny because these days the airborne units, especially the special forces, they weren't forced to wear those fancy uniforms. If we had a big parade or something, we always showed up in combat uniform.
Mm.
So, and that's actually, if I tell you, even for my wedding, I didn't had a nice jacket and suit on. It was just jeans and the freaking Harley Davidson T-shirt. So I'm
Hey,
I'm
I'm
really
not.
not too much into uniforms.
I'm not knocking on that at all. No, I mean, gosh,
Yeah, no, no.
I think the casual and the more real you can be during something like your wedding, the better, man.
She was a little better casual than me, but
Uh.
that's out of the nature. She looks better than me, definitely from the very beginning. So that was. Uh,
Well,
yeah.
I was watching this. I don't know if you're an American fan or a fan of American baseball, but I was watching Brian Snickers, who's the manager of the Atlanta Braves. His team and his speech that he was giving in the locker room was short, sweet, and to the point. And then his answers to his questions in post press or post game interviews were very much thanking his wife. She put up with
Okay.
all my shit. She put up with all my bullshit. She put up with it all. The only reason I'm up here is because that woman held down a job and took care of the kids and allowed me to go and raise hell and have managed baseball teams and all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure we could
Yeah.
all probably say that our wives make
Yeah.
us look better and help us clean up a little bit.
I definitely. I mean, I'm out of home 200 days a year, so
Yeah.
without having the girl there supporting all that, it wouldn't be probably possible.
Yeah, really
So,
cool.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I maybe we should clear up this too, and I want you to weigh in on it. But there's been, as you mentioned before, and we've talked offline, the terms driver and operator, and
Yeah.
you're probably the perfect person to dissect both of those terms because I've asked people on the show previously, hey, driver or operator, and they've given me kind of their thought on the term. I really don't, as we've mentioned before offline, I don't have a preference, but I have mentioned before that, and you kind of agreed the operator term is a bit sexy. It sells, but it's not superior to the term driver. So if you could
Yeah.
unpack those terms for us and what they mean to the industry and to Europe or to you, that would be amazing.
As mentioned before, I just follow sometimes those conversations on social media, and the point is, sometimes North American operators get a little upset about the expression driver, but it's I get the point because in English language there is quite a differentiation between being an operator or driver. The point is, I think it's a misinterpretation or or a wrong translation from the German or the Italian or the French language, since there you're driving a machine. The term operating a machine doesn't really exist in those languages. So that's why some people talking bad English as I do, sometimes if they post something and mention driver, or as it was in the past, to bring a drivers club, it wasn't meant in a bad way. It was just a misinterpretation or or a wrong translation of the term, since it doesn't really exist in those languages. So that's why I explain it also to Heldenach, that famous site, to the guy who leads that site. I explained him to put operator on that because it's quite important in English. So for me personally, if somebody calls me a driver, I'm not insulted. I'm not offended at all, because I know it might be just a misinterpretation or a wrong translation. So I just would like to mention that somebody, if he sees something about drivers, it's not meant in a bad manner. If it comes from somebody from Europe, it's just they don't know it any better. It's But definitely I get the point in English, because there is a difference being an operator or a driver. But by per definition, driving, you drive a car, right?
Do,
And you operate the machinery. But in German, there isn't really, or in Italian, there isn't really the right term of an operator.
do you think that's kind of like a series of unfortunate events, maybe, where you've got just the brand being themselves, people being themselves, and like you just mentioned too, people potentially just taking it the wrong way when maybe it's
Yeah.
yeah. I just
And and we live in a world of big egos,
mm,
and sometimes, I mean, as I told before, I don't really care if somebody calls me a driver or an operator, because I know what I am doing in a cat. I know that I do a lot of wrong things as well. Every day I do 10,000 mistakes, but it's
wait,
not the
you make
term.
mistakes?
Yeah, that's how I learn. That's
Yeah.
how I learn every freaking day.
I hope everybody's
I
listening to
learn.
that. Yeah.
I make mistakes. Jesus Christ. Sometimes I feel embarrassed about myself, but I'm learning out of this. That's how I try to improve.
Yeah.
Looking back what you've done, and then thinking, well, that could have been way better.
Yeah. Another thing
Yeah.
I was going to bring up too was the wheel. I think a lot of people maybe misinterpret the wheel cat over there if they call it the wheel, or
Yeah.
if they don't call
Yeah.
it the wheel. I think they may misinterpret that as, oh, that machine over there, they have a wheel, and that's why they call him a driver. And it's like, I don't know about all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, those are all kind of misinterpretation. What in my perfect world, somebody would not care too much about it. You probably would try to explain to the other part why it shouldn't be called a driver or a wheel or whatever,
Mm.
but without being offended or upset about an expression. I don't take it too serious about all those things. But I know this. I know this topic very well, since I live in. I would say I live in both worlds. Being in Prenote and being over the ocean and on this side. But I think if that would be the biggest problem we have in our industry, then we would live in a quite perfect world.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I've definitely
Yeah,
seen people drive wheel cats, or machines with yokes, so to speak,
yeah,
that
yeah,
are way more efficient than I ever was. Seeing how they do things and their method of going about it, and yeah, I don't think it matters what machine you're in or what it has in it for controls. Just be humble, be
exactly.
humble, get the job done.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
Very cool. I do want to know, beyond the delineation between the two terms and misinterpretation of those two terms, really what defines you outside of the world of snowcats and maybe your role with Prenoth, because I don't know. I mean, you just unpacked a lot of stuff that you have done and participated in prior to kind of landing the gig in the snow world. But if snowcats wasn't your thing, what would be your dream job? So there's really kind of two questions there. Sorry. So who are you outside of the snowcats snow industry world? And if you weren't doing that, what would your dream job be?
Outside of the snow industry, but also inside, I would say I'm quite a simple guy. I enjoy the nature up in the mountains, so I could never live in the flatlands, so I need to be up in the mountains. I tried to spend as much time as I can with my family, since due to working purposes, I'm not often home. And I like to cruise around in my burp and ride my Harley pretty much all over Europe. So for somebody might sound a little boring, but there's not much going on. So I do not ski anymore as much as I used to, or I don't do extreme sports anymore because I'm old now and my bones break like I don't know what. So
Yeah.
uh, it's quite a chilly living, I would say, because I have action enough in my job, in my personal opinion. That's for sure. My other dream job, honestly, really honest, I never thought about it because I think I have my dream job as far as I could judge it. But if somebody would force me to get out of a snowcat and do something else, probably I would get back, drive big trucks hauling big loads, those oversized loads. That's what I did, and that's what I loved a lot, just being around different countries and running a big piece of machinery somehow. I don't have bigger expectations. I'm quite simple. I would be happy with that one.
Yeah.
So honestly.
You're like
But
the Mike Bennell of Italy, man.
Might be, yeah. No, that's just how it is. I don't have big ambitions. I like to run equipment, and why should I try to do something else?
Yeah.
As long as I can, and as long as my body allows it, I'm gonna try to keep up with this work. Maybe in prenup they lose the patience with me. That might happen, but
I doubt that. I doubt that. What do you think okay, so I was going to ask you to, what do you think the most difficult thing is that you have to do within the company that you may loathe, you may hate doing it, but at the end of the day, you enjoy it no matter what?
Well, the most difficult thing for me is being in the office.
Really?
And no matter what, in the evening, I don't look back and enjoyed it. I always hate it. And people here in headquarters, they know it and they joke about it. When we are in the office, there are always the running gags around, because we're not really used to it. So like I have one of my assistant, Julius, she sits with us in the office, and there is one big ban in our office during the winter months. So it's not allowed to turn on the heating
Oh,
in
no way.
because we have all smaller offices, we don't have these big room offices like you used to have in the US. We have like 4 people offices, 3 people offices, and in our ones it's forbidden, totally forbidden to turn on the heating. And so people, they're always joking now, or the mountain guys are back now. Mountain guys, that's the nice expression now for the podcast, but they call us also in a different way, because there's no heating on because we get sick of heatings in offices. So that's, people is joking because they just know we hate being in the office. But I realize it's a big part of the game, and doing meetings, and sometimes, if we bring back customer feedbacks, because that's something we really care about it in the company, and that's what made the brand what it is today. I think the evolution in the last 10 years was insane. It's really, we are all the time sitting with guys in a cat in the passenger seat, either running the cats by our own, but always in touch with customers. And of course, we get back to the company and we have meetings where we open those customer feedbacks, and that's kind of the nicer part of the office job, but everything else is just a pain.
What if you had
somewhere.
the Ryko seat, the old seat, or whichever seat was the most comfortable that you preferred, and you had the blade stick controls and the LNRs on your left hand, and that was your chair? Would the office work be more comfortable?
Nope,
Just
because
had
it's still
to
an
ask.
inside job.
Yeah.
It's still an inside job,
Retractable roof on the building, would that make it better?
No chance. You need to be somewhere on a slope, and even if it's just 5 degrees uphills, I don't care, but it needs to be something not flat. Well, there's no chance. Build an office what would fit to our expectations. No chance.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why a lot of people enjoy saying or terming that the machine is the office. I think that's the most fun, attractive thing to discuss. What people do and how they attack the role, and most of them have told me, like, look, like the machine that I'm in, my machine that I have for that shift is my office, and that's what I prefer to, or where I prefer to enjoy the job. Everything else is something that I have to do, yeah, absolutely, but for the most part, 99.9% of why I enjoy it is because I'm behind the sticks.
Exactly.
Yeah. I had to ask. One of the really cool things that I think you've been a part of, that I'll maybe very small group of people can empathize with, relate to, is the development of something from the ground up. And you pretty much got to do that in Ukraine. A couple of questions. One, did that more or less fall in your lap? Right place, right time to get that opportunity? I'm sure it would have been incredible, but I'd be interested to know really how that happened because I'm sure it's a pretty rad story.
Yeah, it's a funny story. So I came down. It was a day in the spring. We finished the season up at my home mountain, and I was always the guy who liked to travel, to see new things, always curious about everything. So I came down and did our last shift, and was sitting at home at the desk and just thinking, what could I do? And I was applying in a mine in New Zealand as a mechanic and a wheel loader operator. And yeah, almost signing the contract. And so after a couple of hours, there pops in a mail from a company which does ski area planning, how you master planning and
Okay.
so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they got my contact from somebody in TA's Techno Alpine because I knew those guys from snowmaking and so on, and they were looking for guys who would like to run excavators in Ukraine, developing a completely new ski area, and building the snowmaking system and the big lakes and pump stations and so on. And I was signing that contract with New Zealand. And
Wow.
there came in this offer for Ukraine, and I was like, oh, well, that would be probably more interesting than sitting around in a mine
Yeah.
somewhere, in a workshop. And then, yeah, straight away I accepted, and yeah, it was amazing. I mean, when I got there the first time, there was a very old two-seater chairlift. That was the only. So the whole valley, there was nothing but like 5 small, really tiny, small farms. Those, you have that picture of old Soviet Union,
Yep.
and at the end of that valley there was this one single chairlift, and nothing but that one. And from that, it went to one of the biggest skiers in Europe. Now they have like 600 snow guns, and I don't know how big lakes, and a lot of slopes, and 20 snowcats, and so on. So yeah, we went there totally not knowing the language, not being able to read those Cyrillic signs, all those stuff. So we went there by zero and start to
Wow.
build up some teams with the local guys there and start to harvest some wood and starting to bulldoze around some dirt and building slopes and snowmaking systems. And yeah, when the summer was over, we built already about maybe 20 miles of slopes and
Yeah.
snowmaking. And it was a team of all Italians pretty much running the equipment over there. And
Wow.
handwork was done by the Ukrainians, really some tough guys, and really good. It was really good time. And end of the summer, I was actually supposed to get back on my home mountain and run the snowcat up there, but then they asked me, well, we have now a brand new ski area. We have 6 snowcats at that time, old LH 500s Leitners,
Wow.
sitting in the yard. We have like at that time 200 snow guns, but we never did run a snowmaking system, and we don't have any clue how to run those snowcats. So they asked me if I could stay there and just head them out a little to show them around. And so I ended up being there for almost 3 years, and it was sure one of the best times of my life, and that's where I met my wife as well. But it was amazing seeing the evolution. And if I get back now there and I see the whole valley developed, there are small hotels, tiny hotels, pensions, ski rentals, ski schools, all built up by the local people, which have been farming, putting down potatoes before, and now they can make out quite a good living out of it. And that's the good part of it. Sure, it's not everywhere the same, but in that case, it was really, they built a big school for the valley and a hospital. And yeah, it was the evolution in 5 years. It was just breathtaking, it was insane, but without destroying the whole valley, it was somehow in a sustainable way. And definitely the local people makes a good living out of it now. And seeing it, they run now brand new Light Wolves there and have no problems to buy new equipment and treat the employees good. And it was definitely a really good experience, especially being pushed in a total new cultural situation, because we got to deal with those guys, really hard worker. They didn't care if it was raining or falling down rocks of the sky. They just kept working. But as soon they got salary, they just disappeared for 3 days, vodka like gallons. And they didn't came back for freaking 4 days, but when they were back, they were full on duty. But you got to deal with those cultural things. It's good living. It's a good life school.
Yeah. Well, is that something that you can definitely hang your hat on, that you're proud of that? Because you're talking,
sure.
you're talking about really transitioning out of something that you probably weren't super passionate about doing, switching over to something that you knew how to do, but you were, like you said, learning along the way with different cultural aspects of the job, and how one countryman can help another countryman and come together to be able to create something that's sustainable, helps the local economy flourish. And now look at it. I just think that's like the dream,
And I'm even more proud of the guys over there, because we have been there for quite a short period, considering that they didn't knew. None of these guys was ever on skis, because that was a fancy sport at those days, and Ukrainian people had to go to the Alps to ski, what for a normal Ukrainian employee worker would never happen, never ever. So, and those guys never been on skis and anything, so they had a quite short time to learn how to deal with the mountain, how to make snow, how to push it out, how to create a slope, a skiable slope, And I'm even more proud of these guys, because I'm the guy who I love to share my knowledge, so I don't keep any secrets, never ever, I tell you every single thing I know about this, so far as I know, and I'm proud of these guys, because after 3 years, those guys, they were totally able to run the whole freaking big ski area by their own. And it's not only my thing. There have been some guys from TA as well, and from Leitner, as well as from Doppelmayr, and everybody was sharing the knowledge, and seeing those guys evolving within 3 years to running the whole mountain by themselves, that's just amazing. That's something what just I love it, and I'm proud of these guys.
When you were telling me about that, just the snippets, and I was excited to hear you expand on that whole adventure. It's not easy to do something like that. Making a large capital entrepreneurship, I don't know how to just really describe it. It's really just, the major thing that I saw happening was that you were benefiting a community by creating something like that. And then, like you're saying, to see the people continue to return and work for the ski hill and run the machines and purchase new equipment and develop who they are as operators, that's pretty special, man.
Yeah, no, I love it, and that's one of the important thing, and I think that's how everybody could grow personally. Just don't try to hide or keep secrets for you. Just spread it, and as more as you spread your knowledge, as more knowledge you gain back somehow, in some way, not necessarily by talking to somebody, but it's just, you learn always all out of it, and it's just amazing seeing. And now I go there for skiing, or if I deliver a new cat, then I go there. But otherwise, they don't have any need for me there. But I'm always well appreciated there, and we have fun when getting back there, and it's definitely it's amazing. Yeah.
Who's kind of taken over there? Who's in charge now, since you've kind of left the project and it's running on its own? And
they run everything by their own. It's all Ukrainian people now running the whole thing, from the top management down to the mechanic and the ski instructor. It's all local people now, totally.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do think, before we get too far along, that we should do the push road question of the day.
road question of the day.
That is right. The push road question of the day. Appreciate the introduction there, Madison. Thank you so much. It's my favorite part of the show. Man, Andreas, we've got some really good questions. We've had some people weigh in. Nobody's throwing out anything gnarly, so don't be scared. But let's see. I'm going to start with Mr. Ben Finn as a push road question for you. And Ben wants to know what type of music you listen to while you're operating equipment.
I know exactly why Ben is asking that.
Funnily enough, and I will chime in here, this is the second time that Ben has asked about what music people listen to in the machine. The first person was Jeremy Carpenter. I was like, what the fuck is up with this? Anyway, go for it.
Ben knows exactly that, and don't start to laugh, but I don't listen to any music in a snowcat. I have never ever the stereo on in a snowcat.
Really?
And I'm not kidding you. I'm listening loud as hell in my car, just sitting at home, and there I'm listening to quite some rock music and really loud. Working out, I listen to loud music. But as soon as I sit in a cat, the first thing I do, it's turning off the stereo.
Wow. That's what I mean, Mike Bennell. Again, you're the Mike Bennell of Italy.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't know that Mike has that weird approach as I do have.
Oh.
No, I might sit for, and I know there are working laws, but sometimes we got to work like 16 hours, 18 hours. And I can sit 18 hours in a cat working on my project and not listening to a stereo. I'm listening to the pumps, definitely. And I mean, probably if I would do some boring ski run, like just grooming up and down without having much project to do, probably I would listen. I'm in the lucky situation. I would call it the lucky situation that I'm working always on some projects, maybe tricky ones, as I would call them. So I'd like to listen really to the machine, to the tracks, because I tell you, sometimes you can feel and hear 5 seconds before your track starts to spin. You can feel it gonna happen now and hear it. Or if I do, a really good example is by tilling a border cross or a ski cross course, grooming the rollers. I'm opening a little the window and listening to the tiller shaft, how deep it's in the snow. I never look at the gauge where I am with my cutting depth, or just tilling over a knuckle on a big landing. I don't look at the gauge. I'm listening to the tiller shafts into the snow, and maybe I'm not as good as an operator to be able to listen to music and work at the same time with the sticks and the blade, but that's just my way. And don't get me wrong, I have no problems with somebody listening to nice music if it's not too loud, so at least you can hear if some wheel guide is loose or a grouser is broken or whatever. But I'm never listening to music in a snowcat. So when in the company they ask me feedback about the new sound system, don't ask. They know they don't have to ask me.
Oh my
and
God.
Don't ask me about subwoofers. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Hey, Andreas, how's the new sound system? You're like, what sound system?
What sound system?
I'm sure it's great. Okay, moving right along, and maybe this is in line with kind of your steep terrain versus the boring flat terrain. No disrespect to flat terrain. Sometimes it's just not as fun to groom.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Sometimes it's just not as fun to groom. Sometimes you're in the mood to just groom something steep.
Yeah.
But let's see. Nick Roma, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Nick says, "Hey Andreas, Roma here. How's the road to Stelvio? I've heard it's less crooked than MR."
Yeah, well, the road to Stelvio, it comes up from 3 sides: from Switzerland, from the Italian side, Bormio, and from the South Tyrolean side. And the South Tyrolean side, it's like 48 switchbacks, and the road is wide like 1.5 car, and the switchbacks are literally 180 degrees. They are not like wide switchbacks as you experience them in the US, where you can get up with a big truck. So just to give you a picture, with my burp with the Suburban, I need the whole steering capabilities of the truck to get around the corners. So
Wow.
it's fun to get up there right after breakfast in the morning.
Yeah, wow.
You get sick, and it's quite a vertical drop. It's big.
So Stelvio, is that pretty much your place year round? You're always spending a bunch of time up there?
Yeah, during the summer months, the place it's open only during the summer months because in the winter it's just too far up on the mountain and the weather is just it's impossible to ski there. But beside the fact that the roads are shut for avalanches and so on, so the place it's open only from end of May, beginning of June until beginning of November. So we haul up there the cats, and that's kind of our testing area. So we can run our cats also during the summer months and really realistic situations, and having like literally 10 different types of snow, from the really hard pack winter snow conditions in June to the like 10 feet slush during July and August, and then back to big snowstorms in fall. So we can cover a really good portion of our testing with the new prototypes and so on. Beside the project of the X Camp, what we do up there.
Yeah, that was gonna ask too. Is that where X Camp is?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
So do you have? And I was gonna ask too. Are there resources for X Camp? Is it just? I mean, you guys have everything full, all the machines, all the mechanics, everything happening, and the ability to do prototype testing as well as construction of features.
Sure.
Wow, that's
I mean,
awesome.
that's for Prenot. Prenot does the X Camp first of all to promote the sport itself and to give the ability to the athletes to have training sites. So there is Charles in Sasfi, and then we gave this second opportunity with a different setup than Charles runs. It's just not to be in competition. We are not in competition at all with Charles. It's just a different setup. It's like a slope style World Cup course. It's not a half pipe. It's not much of this one, but Prina doesn't do it to make money, or it's more we can put on that many hours of cat time in this project and pushing around from ice to slush and everything. It's just for us, it's just awesome to have the prototypes and the new machines up there running, to
Yeah,
gain more and more datas out of the machines.
I think it's rad that you have kind of a home base like that to be able to go up there and test equipment,
Yeah.
prototypes, but like you're saying too, push the sport as well. And that being the focus is pretty awesome for you to speak to as well. All right, so I have one last push road question for you, and it's from Artie, and I'm thankful that she's contributed to the push road questions of the day. And her question is: so demo cats have brought you all around the world. What's been your favorite place to visit and why? I love it. Not necessarily operate or like I was phrasing earlier, but what's been your favorite place to visit?
Yeah, as mentioned before, it's really hard to say, but in terms of demo, for sure, yeah, Whistler. And having the question from Artie, I couldn't answer anything else, He's played out in Whistler, so uh, yeah, no, definitely Whistler was one hell of an experience, especially getting into a totally red place, getting in there with the light wolf. That was already kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
But having that mountain, and it was late in spring, and it was just people downhilling down in the valley or from mid mountain down, and we were up on top of the mountain just pushing around snow, and that was definitely one hell of a place
If
for
you
sure. It
if
was
you had to pick
awesome.
somewhere else other than Whistler, where would you pick to visit?
Yeah, one of the better places I've been definitely was Sochi as well in terms of mountains, because that place, the mountain is just insane. It's subtropical. It's like 10 feet of snow on top, and it's raining down at the bottom, but the vertical drop is insane. And And definitely in Scandinavia, Sweden. I loved Åre, where I was. I was in Åre 2 winters in a row for about 2 months each winter for the World Cup finals, and the year later for the World Championships. And it was special as well. Freaking big storms, minus 30 centigrades Celsius, big windstorms, nasty mountain, totally rock hard packed snow, but awesome people, nice tiny village down, and yeah, oh, that there are so many, Parker. I couldn't even list them all.
Oh, I bet. I bet. That's the most intriguing part to me, though, because there are
Yeah,
so many. And
yeah.
okay, real quick on Sochi, did you? I know that Steve Petrie spent some time there. I know that Isabel spent some time there on the some of the Olympic venues. Did you ever get a chance to link up with them, or no?
Not too much, since first I went there just doing training on new operators or operators coming from other brands, just to get them the training at our equipment, and then somehow I got involved in the projects itself, and I was kind of little the Olympic prostitute. Is it keen to call it like this? So I got to jump from an alpine
Oh,
venue down to the PGS one day, and the other day I was helping out in the moguls, and it was just a little messing around pretty much all over the places. So, but I was full of work all the time, and Paul Wilson, he knows it. He was the grooming manager there, or he
yeah.
was leading the grooming department. So I was just jumping around like a there was that bird, that cartoon. I don't
Oh,
Woody
like.
Woodpecker.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I remember that one. I'm
So
I'm old enough to remember that one. What? Yeah.
so I didn't really had the chance to meet, or I met a lot of people, but I never had the chance to talk to them for a couple of hours or something like this, because then somebody did track the beast on top of the mountain, and I went up to try to get that thing off the mountain, and then the other day a cable snapped, or it was always like jumping around a little, trying to fix cats and helping the guys out somehow.
Yeah, the list goes on and things keep revolving, and yeah, I
Yeah.
I was curious, and and I always ask just people that have been around. So the food, like, was the food as bad as they kind of described it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Well, they're saying they definitely went for
But
the
it's
what's that?
I need to mention that Russian food, it isn't bad at all if it's cooked by a old Russian babushka in a small shed down in a village. Then it's awesome.
Yeah,
It's just fantastic food. But it's just they had to feed somehow 2,000 people up on the mountain, and it was just like, oh Jesus,
yeah.
buckwheat, and yeah. Well, I don't want to talk about it.
You don't have to, you don't have to unpack it if you don't want to.
We
I just
we
want
we definitely ended up doing breakfast in McDonald's, which might be kind of a normal deal in US, but for a European guy doing breakfast in a McDonald's, that's not talking about McDonald's. We like burgers and we go there, but having breakfast there, that's another level. But that was the most decent food we could get on the mountain.
yeah. Well,
That was really
that's what Isabel and Steve were saying too. They were like, "Hey, I have never eaten more McDonald's
yeah.
than in
No,
that period of time
definitely.
of my life." Yeah.
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 Definitely.
Supersize me.
Yeah. But
Jeez.
as I mentioned, it's not the Russian food. It was just that special situation, being there. And I hope for the guys being in China that they get a better situation. But I understand also the point that there's so many people around the mountain, and it's just hard to feed them all in a decent way. That's for sure.
Yeah. No. And sometimes it's funny. I was mentioning to both of them it doesn't matter if you're at an event or you're at a party, or I guess a party could still be an event, but whatever the venue is, it's hosting a lot of people. There's only a couple things that those people really remember. And one of them's the food.
Yeah,
The other one's
definitely.
really the music. You probably weren't listening to music either.
No.
Oh, that was so good. Well, cool. Well, hey, Andreas, thanks for being a part of today's Push Road questions of the day.
It was a pleasure.
Well, let's jump back into it. I want to. It's not like you're categorized into this box of a person or operator that has only been affiliated with World Cup ski racing, giant slaloms, super ski areas. You've been affiliated with parks before, and I know we've had a lot of park people on the show prior, but you were pretty much coming up at a time when you were figuring it out just like North America was. And, one of the things that you and I talked about offline was kind of just the half pipe scene disappearing from Europe and what that's kind of been like. But the parks themselves and their evolution and your involvement in that would be pretty cool to know as well, however much you're willing to fill us in, because I think you've done some rad stuff with that.
Well, it was different because back in the days when we started, it was in the mid 90s, end of the 90s. So we started to build somehow parks, because the whole thing swapped over from the US because there is no question about freestyle skiing. I mean, we did free riding here in Europe as well, but the freestyle skiing was born in North America without any doubt. And so, yeah, we have seen those videos, and I'm talking about videos. We were looking at VHS records because there wasn't any YouTube or no social media, anything, we had those VHS records and Burton, whatever videos, and we tried just to do things as they did. And of course, it was a big mess at the very beginning. It was embarrassing, the stuff we did built, and I'd like really to mention, I'm just a builder. I'm not a part designer. If there is any differentiation in the US, but I see a big difference in being a designer and builder, which can be both, of course, in one person. I can build stuff, but I need somebody who tells me how to build it. Of course, on a big scale, I have a picture. If somebody tells me, yeah, build me a kicker with a 16-meter table, then I'm able to do it. But being on the creative side of this things, so we were relying on the riders, and they were just going for bigger jumps and more steep jumps and bigger radiuses, and we had no freaking idea about the landing and anything. So we started to build this park. It was kind of small park, and we had at least 5 broken legs a day. And
Yeah.
when you were done with one feature, you needed always a crash test dummy, and it was historically it was always one of the shapers, which were guys who were able to ride because we have been cat operators, not freestyler. So one of the shapers was, "Who's gonna be the crash test dummy today?" "Yeah, well, it's gonna be me." Okay, next day one shaper less, and so suddenly we found out, okay, maybe we should change our system because we're lacking shapers suddenly. So
Oh man.
yeah, it was kind of slow growing process, and then of course more areas start to do parks, and it got a little bigger, and then some US guys came over with some events, and that definitely made change the situation. And then we started that half pipe. Yeah, today you wouldn't call it half pipe. Today it would be a fun ride, but like it wasn't even straight, But these days, and we had this PV 200, the old one, with the old cap,
Oh yeah.
the really old one, and we had this big freaking horn instead of the blade, just to scrape down the walls.
Wow.
I don't know if you ever seen a picture of this thing. If I can find it, because up in my hometown it's still exposed there in the lift entrance, that big freaking horn. That's how we tried to scrape some a
Wow.
wall of a pipe. And yeah, then slowly came up the pipe magician from Piston Bully, and that was probably my biggest pipe I ever built. And after that, the pipes start to disappear because we haven't had really riders riding them in a proper way, and it was quite a big effort to build them, and nobody really rode them, so they slowly disappeared. And luckily, there is still a big pipe in Lax, everybody might know, and Charles builds that awesome pipe in with Jeremy, especially in Saas-Fee. But there aren't many pipes around Europe anymore, so it's all getting more in the direction slope style and fun rides. But in my opinion, it's okay as well. But definitely the evolution then with social media, YouTube, and being able to share easier experiences also overseas, I think that made the big improvements. And then suddenly the shaping companies or the snow park companies start to grow, like FTech and Schneestern and so on. And I think those were the big game changers, because definitely there was a good designer or a creative guy behind who had clear ideas and building projects and getting into the ski area and telling the guys there how to build stuff, And before we were just trying to do whatever we could, and it was always a best guess, at the end of the day. So definitely from the beginning of 2000 and so on, the things start to grow quite fast and getting better. And we have big parks now here in Italy, in Switzerland, in Austria, France. So I think freestyle, and it's getting more and more popular since the features got safer, kickers got safe. I mean, I can see hit kickers up in my home resort, Alm, where we have some big mammoths, We built the kickers for the World Cup, and we leave it there for the commercial park afterwards.
Wow.
And there's my son and his friends, 10, 11-year-old guys just hitting those kickers like nothing, and I think that's awesome.
Do you think it's I don't know if it's pride thing or if it's something that is a natural evolution of where folks want to take their interest in building either a race course or a park, but you mentioned something where it's maybe you're not necessarily the designer, but you can definitely build them once given the blueprint. So, working with the contractor, foreman, whoever, to get things moving forward on snow. I mean, you respect that. That's you. You're stoked on doing that. I think I've run into people a lot of time before who want that input in how things are built, and they're the builder, and I think that's okay. But I also think that it's important to understand kind of the role that you play in the whole footprint in order to piece it all together. Because I think that's where we run into things like too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I see it even sometimes, or at least in the past, I've seen it as a kind of an advantage, not having the mindset of necessarily being a designer, or however you would call it, Parker. I don't know, designer.
I
or
like the word designer. That's a sexy term.
Yeah. So because in that case, I didn't push my ideas in the park, but I relied totally on the riders,
Mm.
So, and that's how we built always stuff what the riders did liked a lot, because that was what they were asking us, And I didn't push my features. For some park builders might be boring, but that's just I'm quite sure I can build some landings and kickers really fast, but don't ask me to build you down a whole freaking park by my own, just there's the snow and now build whatever you want, because that probably would be a big mess. I need somebody who leads me through the features, and yeah, I have no problems to admit it. I'm quite efficient in building stuff, and we are known that we build our stuff really fast and nice and shiny, as long as somebody tells us what they want to have built. That's what our collaboration with FTech now,
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very cool. I don't know if I've always, yeah, I think that's probably a better way to put it. I think I've always run into folks that's their natural thought evolution of their thought process. I want a hand in designing what I'm building, and if you were to look at it the opposite way and say, I could get better at the craft if I could build what I'm told to build, and figuring out an efficient process for building that thing, whatever it is, whether it's a race course, whether it's a park. I
Yeah.
think that would be a very progressive way to think as a human being. But again, I could be wrong.
I've met one guy building cross courses on World Cup scale, and he was a former rider, and definitely, in my opinion, one of the best designers you could ever meet. And because if he tells you to put a roller down and the next there, it's gonna fit to all athletes without any doubt, without a measure tape, without anything. He just has the feeling, for the speed, for the snow, for everything. But
Mm.
then suddenly he thought, okay, he gonna run the snowcat by its own, because sometimes I understand the point. It's difficult in different ski areas. Maybe there might be the old schooler guy who is not interested in build some features, and if he needs to work with these guys, then he might struggle. But he's the perfect designer. But if he sits in a cat and starts to build, it takes him forever. And after a while, he realized it.
Yeah.
We could build the same shit in half of the time, just having him in the passenger seat. And he has the understanding for the machine, since he did run the little machine. But he admitted, okay, I'm not the most efficient guy, but definitely he's one of the best designers. So it's not always necessarily linked one to the other, and that
Mm.
doesn't matter if it's a race course on an alpine venue, or is a park, whatever. It's just sometimes, and I'm honest, I'm a shitty designer, but I can build you stuff quite efficient way.
Yeah, and I think that's important to talk about, and I wanted you to kind of weigh in on just the park stuff too, because it's not like you haven't done that. You've done so much. You've been a part of resort ground up construction, race course construction, terrain park construction, pre-North X camp. You've worked with R&D machines. You deliver machines. You train people. So I think that's a really cool mindset. I didn't know that. That's not something that we really discussed. I know you brought up kind of off the line or offline when we were talking that you've kind of changed who you are over the years, and being around people, and realizing where you're an asset, and where you can kind of back off and listen a little bit more. But I do think one thing that's kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily black and white or if there's any gray matter in between, but the throttle, and whether you're setting the throttle on the hand throttle, or whether you're using your foot the whole time, or not using your foot, or using both, or what have you. But there are options there, and that was definitely one of the things that I wanted you to weigh in on. So, what is your thought there versus, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you can describe the process that you use in the machine, or you can describe your thought process for which one is better. But what is your take on hand throttle or foot throttle?
You nailed it down quite well. So there is a lot of gray in between white and black, right? So coming from the Alps reality, we were used to run our cats all on foot throttle, and then when I went over to the US, there was the big hand throttle thing, and I know John Swartz and we had several conversations about it, Uh, and it is funny because I start to use more the hand throttle once I have seen the reality over there. But definitely, I would like to mention there is not the right or the wrong thing how to run it. There are
Mm,
different situations where one would work better than the other, and vice versa.
mm,
Like I, for instance, for myself, for an ordinary grooming job, I would always run the foot throttle, because in my personal opinion it is a little more fuel efficient. But if I work like in a ski cross or a cross course, or I groom something, especially doing tilling works in those tiny places and keeping the tiller always alive, or even tilling a race course, reverse tilling after watering, I use a lot the hand throttle as well.
mm.
So, but it's always, the mindset, it's not, that's wrong from the very beginning. Just go there and try it, and then you figure out what fits best to you. But something I would really like to mention is that today the machines, they can deal with both at the same time, and you're not doing a worse or a better job by using either the hand or the foot throttle.
Hmm.
That's just I know it's a big topic. uh, it's People has to understand the machine, the technologies, it changed. Okay, 30 years ago we had the steel wire driven drive pumps, or steel wire back to the drive pumps, and that was a natural way to run the hand throttle because there
Yep.
was no anti-stall into the system. And but today the software deals with so many things in a cat. So the foot pedal today does not only the diesel revs, but it does also the same as the speed pot or the sticks would do.
Hmm.
So that if people understand those process, then, and that's what I'm missing a little, that many operators, they don't even try. I mean, you don't have to be a mechanic to understand a machine, but just show a little interest and ask your mechanic or your shop manager, could you explain me just roughly how does a snowcat works?
Hmm.
Without knowing, yeah, there is a fuel pump, whatever. Yeah, that's an engine. There are two pumps, so on. And if you understand how the machine works, then you understand how to operate it better, and then you will figure out that in many occasions a foot pedal would work better, and in other occasions a hand throttle could work.
And
So
you're
I would always like to get rid of all those black and white. There's a
yeah.
lot of gray in between.
And you're referencing too, just for everybody that's tuning in, the steel cable you're mentioning that's the MP model, right?
Yeah, exactly. MP and LMCs and so on. There have been many of those.
Yep.
That was the technology back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Foot to floor. No, I'm just kidding.
Pedal to the metal.
There's definitely, I think, a method to the madness when you're using either, and I think I would agree with you. There's a place for both, and I think it's always hilarious when there's this debate of, oh, that person's a loser because they use the foot, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
why?
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
Or vice versa. I don't get it.
Mm.
I don't get it. People should be a little open-minded
Yep. I
and
think.
at least try. Then you'll find out. If you're not good enough to use both, then you better apply for a job on a golf course or wherever. and, and if you
Oh.
show enough interest and you start or you try to use both, you will just improve your operation skills, in my personal opinion, in both ways.
Okay, so yeah, one of the things that I wanted to bring up too, in relation to, because we brought up 2 points, one being kind of the terminology, driver operator, the other one being hand throttle, foot throttle. And there are a lot of digital applications out there for just getting greater insight into how equipment functions. I think what a lot of people have tried to do, I say a lot of people so we can stay broad here, but uh, make an experience out of that digital training piece. And I think that that's great. I do. I appreciate that. Um, I most recently have dove into the Prenoth Academy and have appreciated, I would say, the basics, even if it is an operator manual rolled into a digital platform, so that if there is a familiarization that can, I don't know, broaden somebody's horizon to what they would like to be a part of and learn about the machine, they can do that. And it's not just a PDF. But I digress. I don't know how much you want to dive into that or if you've utilized that in any of your training whatsoever. I will say that the most recent piece that I have participated in, not to make it too much of an ad, but there are voices in there, and it actually talks to you and walks you through the slide presentation. It was actually pretty cool.
I would like to mention, first of all, and in my opinion, that's the most important. Nothing can replace seat time.
Yep.
And I don't care if it's the passenger seat or the operator seat, because I was learning so much by doing demos sitting in the passenger seat. You can't imagine how much I did learn.
Yep.
I learned sometimes how not to do things also being in the passenger seat, but most of the time I grab I don't know how I could call it, but I would say I steal by looking, I steal knowledge just by sitting in the passenger. So nothing can replace seat time. There's no doubt. So what we would like to do with the Prenup Academy is just to give you the basic about the machine. We don't necessarily want you to teach how to groom your mountain, because every mountain is different, has different challenges. And if there is a grooming manager sitting there since 5 feet or 20 years, and he has a system to groom the mountain, there might be a good reason behind it, And it's not just like we roll in as a Prenup Academy, well, now we're going to show you how to groom your mountain. No, that's not the case. So we are a manufacturer of a machine, and we are totally convinced, and I know I might hurt some feelings, but we are convinced that we know how to run our equipment as best as it can be operated, because we grow with this equipment from the very first day. So we show up at your place and we show you how to run the Prenup machine. Then if you would like to groom your slope sideways all night long, feel free to do it. I'm going to show you how to do it with the Prenup Bison, either a Light Wolf or a Husky. No problem. But I don't going to tell you, what are you doing here,
Yeah.
If an operator or manager asks me, what do you think you spent now 1 week at our place? What could we improve? Then we could open a discussion, about it. But it's not that we show up but definitely that's why we have this kind of digital training model, because we would like to familiarize operators with the machine they're gonna use. And I can't explain you necessarily how to climb better a pitch on a computer. I can't. I'm not able. I need to sit with you down. You got to ride it. We feel, okay, there is now a soft spot, whatever. You got to pull off the sticks a little or whatever. That's a situation where we need to be in place. I can't explain you on a computer how to climb better a hill, because, there are so many different variations why you can't climb the hill. So we can't nail it down on a PC. So what we would like to do, just to give you the base, how does the machine works? That's the button left and right. And the purpose why we put the user manual down in that is, unfortunately, not many operators read a user manual when they get a new machine or when they get to the new job. So that's the funny thing. If
It's a
I get a
very good
new
point,
company
though.
car, if I get a new company car, the first thing, maybe not the first thing, I bring it home somehow safe, or try at least. And then at home, I pull out the user manual, and I don't read all 500 pages, for sure not. But I pick out the most interesting parts for me, and I try to get familiar with the car. And that's what operators should do a little more with the Snowcat as well, to understand certain things, because I faced the situation that after 3 months of using a Light Wolf, the operator told me, but the tiller doesn't raise enough. Okay, how high does it raise? Approximately that high. Well, push the button once more and it's gonna raise all the way up. Oh yeah, that's funny. I hit already 5 piles of snow with my tiller. I didn't knew. Well,
Oh my
okay, did
God.
you? That's why we bring in the user manual and transfer it in a little more easy form, not having there 1,000 pages, but some slides, and then you get through the main controls, just to and the main daily maintenance topics, just to make it a little easier. But not, in my personal opinion, it's really hard to show you on a laptop how you run properly a winch cat, or how you groom better a slope, because there are so many different snow conditions. You could not. That's my personal opinion, and I think the company supports that opinion, that there's nothing replaces seat time. Nothing.
Do you think that that piece of data in the academy has been a really good kind of I don't want to call it a subsidiary, but just an add-on? Just to say, for example, you sell a machine to somebody and you deliver it, and you can provide that piece of information with them, or to them rather. Sorry. and then they can thumb through it or look at it at their leisure. And I will say the one thing that I have appreciated now with feedback to new machines with respect to that is the ability to fill out a digital form. Like, I am more inclined to fill out a digital form than I am inclined to fill out a piece of paperwork any day.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I see the Prenup Academy as a add-on, and especially, I mean, we perform so many training days a year around the world, and this form, in my opinion, we changed a little the system so customers or operators get access to the Prenup Academy. They start to read through those manuals, or however you would like to call it, and then we get there and we can spend with those guys really time in the CAT and around the machine, hands-on training, and before it was like dealing half a day or one day with theory in a classroom doing presentations. So I would say it made it more efficient, not only for us but also for the customer, because now you get really CAT time once we get there, because you are familiarized with the machine. That's how we do around here in the Alps, where we are a little closer, not that far away. We deliver the machine, we explain you the machine the first day, and then we try to get back after a week, 10 days, because then the main familiarization is done and you feel comfortable with the machine, and then we really dive in deep details, how to get better performance out of the machine and all those things. So I see it more the digital thing. I see it more as an additional tool to keep the real training a little more efficient.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that there's anything that replaces seat time, and I've
never,
definitely mentioned
never.
that on the podcast before. And my thing is that it's hard for resorts, I think, to piece together internal training programs, because that either ladder up to what Prenoth offers, or um something that they've developed in house, because there's already so much that's happening on the ground, on the snow, on the surface, whether it's snowmaking, whether it's maintaining the trails, etc. Finding the time to do that is difficult. I have wished, however, that there would be this transition into places taking an interest in developing. I don't know if I want to call it like a succession program, or somebody that's a designated training individual, and maybe that individual links up with folks like yourself, Andreas, and expands their knowledge, and then they come back to the resort and exchange how they're training and improve upon how they're training. And I see an ever evolving opportunity centered around training, but I just don't know if that's really ever an interest at the resort level because of the time that's on hand, or on shift rather.
But definitely, we have one big customer in Scandinavia. It's a conglomerate which owns, I guess, 8 ski areas, some of the most popular in Scandinavia. And they have a lot of snowcats. I mean, the company itself got about 60 snowcats or something. And they have I would say it's a decent turnover of operators, not too many of them, but we developed with them such a training program, in every single area of this customer, there is a leader, and we always cross check, and we are in steady contact and exchange of informations, and then we go there for about 3 to 5 days every year, and then together with those we do the training. But it's really tailor made, it's like
Wow.
it's really individual for these customers, but you need a customer which is open to this and puts big efforts in training people. And I think it is a big success, not because we are there, but because the customer has this mindset, even being a one of the biggest players in the industry, but they definitely found a good way to do it. And we do even they do the yearly update of the training, the internal company training, and we join that training, and yeah, we mix it up with our training, and I think it was quite a good success
That's
in the
rad.
past. And
That's rad. Well,
yeah,
and it transfers over to summer operations too. So, it's not like you're going to only take an interest in training for winter equipment. You're definitely going to make sure that your folks are trained on summer equipment as
sure.
well. And you can take all of that information and go outside of the ski industry if you want to,
Yeah.
I don't know. I know I'm beating the brakes off of this topic, but I definitely think it's important. Not from like a very biased standpoint, but from almost a safety standpoint as well, too.
Yeah, but also efficiency.
Yeah.
I mean, you would not imagine how much this costs you a bad trained operator.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. It
That's
costs you a bunch.
insane. Yeah, it's insane. And it's not because he's a bad operator, it's just because he didn't get the right training.
Yeah.
And it costs you in terms of fuel, bad efficiency, cat breakdowns, whatever. It's a fortune of money. So even having somebody there from outside or a dedicated person and pay that person, it would pay off. Let's say in a ski area with 10 snowcats, one dedicated person year round there just training your people would pay off probably in 1 year.
Yeah, I would
No
believe it.
doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And word of mouth would spread pretty fast too, I think, if there were to be
Sure.
success. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
well, I keep mentioning it, but I would also classify you and continue to classify you, sorry, as somebody who's literally specialized in so many facets of operations. That world in of itself has so many cogs that spin and make things happen. And you and I again have discussed the fact that a job title for you within the company would probably be pretty hard to nail down, but specialist, I would go beyond that, but
yeah.
I would
I
go.
would go for snow grooming operator.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
that's just that's just what I do. Maybe with some more years of experience than some others, but
But the
I don't
thing,
like
but
specialists.
what you mentioned to me though was that you're not concerned with a job title.
No,
You don't really
not at all.
care, and
No.
that is also something that's different from where you are in Italy compared to North America. A job title in North America is a big deal. Y-
Yeah, I know. Not only North America, it's also in Asia, for example.
mm,
Sometimes some guys in the company they need to have a second business card just for Asia with some really fancy job titles on. I always refuse to do that. And even if I'm leading a group of guys here, I have the same email signature as those guys have because I don't really care. I think you need to earn your trust worth in a different way, but that's my
mm,
personal opinion. But I think I got along quite well so
yeah,
far.
yeah. Well,
So
I would say you have. uh, well, like with respect to just not being too concerned about the job title. I, is that something that maybe you developed from your coming up in the industry in an early age, or maybe it was your time in the army, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know what it was, or how you kind of developed that mentality as being equal and not necessarily being above anybody. But I guess the real question is is that something that you would tell the 20-year-old Andreas? I don't know what you would tell the 20-year-old Andreas based on everything that you've done. But what would you say? Would it be that? Would it be, hey, be humble, don't put yourself above anybody else, or would it be something different?
exact no, that's the first thing. Be humble. That's the main thing because being humble, that's my personal opinion. That's how you learn. That's how you pick new things up every freaking day, Just being humble and not thinking, yeah, man, I'm a rock star here because I built that big freaking kicker or the race course, whatever. Just be humble, work hard, and be curious, always and open minded. As we mentioned before, there's no black and white. If I did something for 10 years in a row in one way, and I see the next day I see something new, at least I make an opinion out of it, just well, man, that works quite well. Maybe
Mm,
I should try to do that. And I think in this manner, I would tell Andres just to be humble
yeah.
and curious and listening to other people even if they have bad opinions or wrong opinions, but that's just how you learn all out of these things and which makes you grow
Yeah.
also in a personal manner, and never put you above somebody else.
Mm.
That's just, I mean, if you have to earn the respect just by promoting a big job title or something, then something's wrong. Just go there, work with those guys, and then maybe they realize, okay, this guy knows something about it. Maybe I should listen. But on the other hand, being that experienced, I still listen to everybody. You know, it's just interesting. It's just, I'm always triggered by different opinions,
Yeah.
and that I'm glad that it is like it is.
Well, you seem to be a listener. I've noticed that as you and I have kind of stayed in touch, and when we've talked, you seem to be very much a listener, more so than you are. Uh, what's the term? I think it's you're listening to respond instead of speaking to be heard. There you go.
Yeah, but I think that what makes us also, or what came up also with this job in Prenup, I guess, having that much time in a cat with other people and listening to their stories, and not only the life stories, but also the experiences they made, and that's just, for me, it's one of the most awesome things I could do, experience. It's always wonderful listening to people, and that's how you learn. That's how you learn every day, and that's how you grow personally. Because maybe when I started in Prenot, I was pushing sometimes a little hard and not listening too much internally, not on customer side, but internally. You know, if we got some meetings, but then you learn. You know, you get a little older, you get a little wiser, or whatever, and then you start listening, and then you realize, okay, if I listen properly, and that's what they tell us or told us in the past, always in Brino, go out there and listen to the customers, what they would like to have. And then of course you need to filter something. If we could build a 1 million snowcat, it would be probably the best machine all over the places, but there are so many different phases in developing a cat. But definitely listening to the guys struggling with the equipment or enjoying the equipment, and bringing back the feedback to the company, that it's also a huge benefit for the company. But there you need to be a guy who listens.
Wow, that was a hell of an answer, and maybe my next question kind of folds into it. But you've had so many opportunities, one of which we've already kind of mentioned at Sochi. But you were also the grooming manager at Cortina. Did I say that correctly?
For the World Championships,
Yeah. And so, as you mentioned earlier, that in itself is a super ski area. You know, so World Championship, super ski area. Both of those opportunities, I'm sure, had their challenges. But you just mentioned that growth piece that you were talking about as a person or in your career, and you know, here I am talking about listening to respond instead of talking to be heard and being loud. And maybe that was the growth that happened in there. But if you maybe elaborate a little bit on the Cortina experience, because I'm interested in that, because that place is gnarly, and just how you did as a person figure out kind of what were the things that you either took away or grew from while you were taking advantage of those opportunities.
Yes, that was a special situation because for the World Championships they needed, of course, a much bigger fleet, so they had to loan some cats, and I had to bring in some external people. And just to give you the picture, in Cortina, the grooming manager is there since 45 years, and he's
Wow.
one of the co-owners of the ski area as well. So rock hard competition mountain, you know, in terms of snowcats, and we rolled in there, you know. And if I would show up as, now we're here, we're gonna freaking groom that whole mountain, get it ready for the World Championships, those guys would just feel somehow stupid, right? I mean, that's not the way how to roll in there. So the first thing is go there and be humble and talk to the guys, and and then not, yeah, we're gonna do this. And because I had some comments the very first days, you know, like, you're never gonna make it with a light wolf up this run and whatever. And don't get me wrong, I'm not, of course I'm employed by Preno, but I did run piston bully half of my career, so I know you can do pretty much everything with every cat if you're good enough. And if not, it's not, never blame the cat. some things it's better with one, some things are better with the other, you know. But we faced the situation. We came in there, and even being humble, it was like, oh yeah, you're never gonna make it, and just go up without being a rock star. Just go up and be humble and involve that people, you know, like take this Max or however his name. Well, let's go up together and you show me your anchor points and then we try together. And I think that what made it a big success at the end. And of course, dealing with a big team of external people, being always in between the local grooming team and the external team, you know, always because there are big egos around, you know, that's everywhere. That's just in the nature of the human being, you know. But yeah, beside the snow challenges, which in my opinion, yeah, there are challenges which have to be faced in any case. There are always the human challenges, which are sometimes more complicated. But if you don't make a too big of a deal out of it, then it's gonna work out. But of course, I wasn't there like, oh, now I'm the grooming manager for the World Championships. No, we are all one freaking team. Doesn't matter if you run a red or a gray or a yellow cat. Doesn't matter if you're here 40 years or since 2 days. We have to be a team. We have to play together because at the end, everybody looks at Cortina. Nobody cares if there was Andreas Silbernagl or whoever, or if there were gray cats or red cats. They just gonna look at the TV and they want to see good races, and that's definitely it was another big experience, but a really positive one at the end.
Was that I'm just trying to picture it too, because a lot of the places I'm sure that you've worked over there in Italy are kind of like I don't think it's the right location geographically, but the mountains over there are beautiful, and so I always picture like the Sound of Music, and just that movie. And as a kid, remembering just like, holy shit, I can't believe they've got helicopters flying over filming this thing right now, and I don't really care about the characters in the movie. I'm more stoked on the mountains I'm looking at, but the scenery over there, I guess, is my point. That would be distracting for me probably at times, because I would be, like I've mentioned before, I would be total Ferdinand the Bull, be like, holy shit, look at the mountains over there. You know, there's just something to be said, I think, for working in a really cool venue
Yeah, definitely.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. I mean, definitely. I mean, the mountains there, the Dolomites, really steep vertical faces, you know, huge vertical drops. The slopes, the commercial slopes, are groomed down in colors, and yeah, definitely, it's special to work in such a place. But if you work on a project, you really focus on those 20 square yards around your cat, I think, then of course you enjoy the mountain. There are moments where you're just sitting on the track and looking at the mountain and fuck, I'm a lucky bastard.
Yeah.
But as soon you sit again behind the sticks, then you got to focus on those 20 square meters around your cat, and then yeah, but that can be beautiful as well, you know.
It can, especially
Yeah,
especially
I
with no music too.
Yeah. I don't want to dive too deep into that thing. I might run into struggle. No, but I've been in so many places, and you can't imagine how often I forgot to take pictures. I could have probably 10 millions of pictures of places around the world, and
Yeah.
suddenly I sit again in an airplane and I enjoy. I have everything recorded in my mind. Don't get me wrong. I don't forget about one single place I've been, and even if it was a really tiny ski lift in middle of nowhere. But sometimes you sit in the airplane, flying towards the next project, and just, fuck, I didn't even took one picture.
Yeah.
It's just that's so many times because you're so focused on your work, and that doesn't mean that you don't enjoy the environment, the place where you are, but it's just forget about.
Yeah, well, your focus is really sharp, and it's kind of like Jeremy
Yeah.
Carpenter was saying that, you know, when Jeremiah Pebley was traveling around doing his thing, one of the quotes that he had, you know, everybody asked him, "How was Japan? How was Japan?" You know, thinking that he would respond with the experience of the culture that he was around, and Jeremy said that Jeremiah responded with, "It looked a lot like the inside of a snowcat."
Yeah, exactly. That's one fact. Then, especially being in different projects all over the places, not always you find the time to just have some sightseeing. Sometimes you have, and it's nice, enjoyable, but sometimes it's just really getting into the cat and onto the slopes and just or on the park and just build your thing, and then you're off
Then
again.
yeah. Well, I do have another special guest question for you. I'm pretty excited about this one. Selfishly, I was excited for Kurt's, but I'm also excited for this one, and it is from Mr. Paul Wilson, and I will go ahead and play it for you now. Here we go.
How's it going, Parker? Servus, Andreas. I think you've picked a great candidate today, Parker, for this podcast. I know Andreas a long time, and I've worked with him on many, many events over the years, and I worked with him also in my time in Prenot in the development of the machine, and it's really amazing to see him work daily. He will be conversing with all departments there within Prenot, from the after sales to the product development to the software, and then up to the board. He will be speaking about developing different countries and all these topics, and then afterwards go out and jump into the machine and operate it. I mean, at the absolute highest level, whether it's on a race course or on a slope style or ski cross or loipa. I mean, he's a really unique guy in that regard, and to be able to create relationships with everyone around him in so many different countries and languages and people of different authority, it's unique. Unique guy, but he's a tough bastard. I mean, we used to call him the Subterranean Bull, but the Russians referred to him as the Italian ballerina. And I think that had something to do with an episode with an Everest winch, more so than his dancing skills, but I let him elaborate on that one. But I think an interesting topic, considering the previous podcasts and a lot of terrain park guys have been on, and that's the Leica system from Prenot. I was an early skeptic of this as well, but having used it now on some ski cross World Cups, I am converted. But I'll let Andreas explain what it is and how it's going to help everyone involved in the future, to be more efficient and so forth. But I leave it up to Andreas to explain and expand on that topic. So, all yours, Andreas.
Hey, Paul. I can't stop laughing here right now for the ballerina.
I was trying to keep it together. I didn't know what you would how you would respond, but
Hey, thanks, Paul, for all your compliments here. It's not all true, but some true parts are in, but definitely just getting back to talking internally in Prenot to all different departments. It's not that I'm always talking to them. Most of the time I'm shouting to them, but that they're used to it, so they don't are offended about it. But definitely, I mean, I have to mention it is also to see from the opposite way. I mean, working in such a big company and having the ability as a normal CAD operator and being a bad mechanic and still getting the chance to talk up to the highest levels in a really personal way, that's for sure. That's something what everybody probably would like to experience, and they take those things serious, and getting back, bringing back feedbacks from customers and so on. That's so far to that part. I think we have to get a little deeper into the ballerina thing. So and the bull thing. So the bull thing is, I think I'm always humble and I try always to get along with people. But when I can be really tough is when we work on a project and I have operators around me which are supposed to be good, or they are good. In that case, many people who worked with me, they know there is no safe space. If you are the crack, especially coming from another area, from other projects, getting into a new ski area, working on a world championship downhill race course, either on a X camp, there is no freaking safe space. I will be always straightforward. I'm not an angry boy, not at all, but I'm always straightforward. If I don't like something, having cracks around me, then I'm gonna mention it. But I'm always also self-critical, you know. I'm not embarrassed to tell you, fuck, I messed it up completely today. But that's how the bull thing came on, and yeah, maybe I'm like 130 pounds, full of tattoos, so also that might affect a little that image. But the funny thing is how I got from the bull to the ballerina, you know, because we got a big snowstorm rolling in the day before the women's downhill race in Sochi. But I think it was the year before the Olympic. It was a World Cup test event, something like this. And we got those big, and I mean, in Sochi, if I tell you it is a big snowstorm, then it is literally big, you know. I mean, the flakes, they join together and they get big as hands smashing on your windshield. It's just like, it's crazy. It's like 7 feet of snow in 15 hours, no problem, you know.
Wow.
All that moisture coming from the Black Sea, rising up on the mountain and dropping down on the other side. And well, anyway, so we went up the mountain with this Prenote Everest winch, an awesome cat, a yoke cat, really fast and performing, but the winch position wasn't a really good one. So dropping it forward down a hill, if you get a little off camber or with the cable in a bad angle, then it's kind of nasty bastard. So anyway, so we were on top of this starting pitch, quite steep, and Hans, a Swedish guy, a friend of mine, and Paul was sitting next to me, and he was like, Andreas, we're never gonna make it down there. And, I looked at him and anyway, we're gonna make it down. I don't know if we're gonna make it down upside down but down we're gonna make it. But until we didn't try it, we're never gonna know.
Yeah.
But you better pick up another cat. Now I'm gonna do it with this now. And at the bottom of that pitch, there was like 20 people standing around in a safe zone. They were far out the slope, but anyway, it was like FIS guys and all those guys. And we dropped down, and I was kind of over the critical part of the pitch, you know, where the risk was quite high to be spinned out with the winch. And Hans looks at me, well, we made it. And I said, well, I'm not sure. And in that second, it was just the cat span around. We went down that freaking hill like a rocket, you know. And I trying to keep the tracks spinning, you know, like just to get the snow out of it and to keep somehow direction. Anyway, we spin down twice, I think, with that Everest. And that was the day when I got from the bull to the ballerina, because it looked like I would like to dance down the slope. And so just getting back to the point of being a specialist or really experienced, you know, that happens to me, and it's gonna happen several more times, I'm quite sure. But sometimes it is funny until as long you don't break down anything. So, but yeah, we went down all the way to the bottom, went back up and tried again, and the second time it worked out a little better. And but yeah, that was the ballerina. And then from that day until the last day of the Olympics, I was the ballerina.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. I'm sure it's so yeah. Hey, well, at least you did it gracefully.
Yeah. Always heads up, you know, being proud anyway. So
Oh man.
yeah. And getting into the Leica system, or I wouldn't nail it down to the Leica. I mean, today there are several different systems around, and not only from Prenote or the Leica system. Leica, it's a different company. It's based in Switzerland, and it's known from construction since ever. So it doesn't belong to Prenote. We're just putting in those systems in our cats, but there's the SnowSat on PB side, there's Arena Power, just there are several systems around, so I wouldn't necessarily nail it down to one system. But of course, the most experience I made with the Leica. So, and yeah, I was a little I was a little concerned some years ago when we started up to put some videos or pictures on social media about our projects built with the 3D model system, with the GPS based system, and then the bashing started, and well, nobody hurts my feelings, not about that, but I was a little surprised how big of a resistance there would be, because just to explain you, I'm quite an old schooler. I barely knew how to to switch on a computer before I started to work for Prenote, because I never faced that situation or the need to do it. So I'm quite an old schooler, and also when it gets back to snowcats, I can be an old schooler, but that doesn't necessarily means that I should close against new technologies. And definitely for me, the biggest eye opener was when we started to use the 3D modeling in park building. I mean, the snow depth measurement systems, they are awesome for slope as well, because you can find easier the snow and whatever. But in park building, it was a big eye opener, and not because I don't know if some people is concerned that in the future the cat might do it by its own. That never gonna happen. That just to be frankly clear, because nothing can replace an operator, not the best computer. He can deal with some blade movements and raise a tiller and lower it, but he never gonna have the view in the mirror how good the result is. He never gonna feel if the snow gets a little softer or whatever. So the butt feeling what an operator has before the tracks start to spin, that's something what a computer, yeah, maybe in 50 years, but not in the next 20 years. I don't see it as a reality. So a Leica system or a snow depth measurement system should be just seen as a tool which helps you being a little efficient, more efficient, because efficiency, that's the key today in the ski industry. I mean, every ski resort, or not every, but 8 out of 10 gonna tell you somehow we need to save fuel or cat hours or snow, whatever. And especially being in the reality of the Southern Alps, we don't get these big snowstorms. We rely 80% on technical snow. So that means you got to spare with it. You got to deal with it in a decent way, because the cost just explodes. The cost of power and water in the Alps, it's insane high. It's at least 5 times higher than in the US. So it's a big amount of money. And one other reason why it was an eye opener in building parks, I never used again a measure tape or sticks around my projects. Since I use a snow depth measurement system, I build my kicker right at the spot. Every blade I push there, it's supposed to be there. Or if I build a big landing, it's not like you push up a huge pile of snow and then you scrape it down, and at the end you end up that 30% of the snow you spread it back to the slopes. It's really it's just more efficient, and you don't waste time running around with a measure tape and sticks to mark your positions, or the breakovers, the knuckles, all those things. One other thing I figured, especially in social media, it was a big concern about creativity, and people was concerned if you use these 3D models, you can't be creative anymore. And in my opinion, that's totally wrong, because nothing limits your creativity. I mean, you might nail it down to another 3D model, or as we do with FTech, for instance. Uh, we have the main portion of the park in the ski area. It's 3D modeled, so the guys build it with the Leica system, relying on the system. But we always keep a certain part of the park as the creative site. And there a builder or a shaper, whatever how you would like to call it, can build whatever he wants. Just to keep the park alive. It shouldn't be the same factory park every day for the whole season. There are always parts in the park, of course, on a smaller scale than the big portion. but where you can develop your creativity, where you can try to find out new obstacles, new features, however you will call it. And what I do, I see it always like the GPS in a car, you know. I mean, I've been traveling around the world with a map on my passenger seat, and I found all the places, no question about it. But today I punch in the address in the navigation system or in the Google Maps, however you would like to call it, and I get there easier, more relaxed probably. But that doesn't necessarily means that I can do how you call it another lap or another route. You know, if I would like to do. If I'm creative now and there is a funny valley or a nice valley, I would like to see it. I just pull over and I just turn out right and go in there. So the GPS or the navigation system doesn't links me. It's not that it drives my car. I'm still the driver. It just gives me suggestions, you know. And that's how some guys should see it a little more. It's not that if you run a snow depth measurement system that you're totally like in cuffs, you know, and you can't do anything beside that.
Well, it's
But definitely,
kind of like you mentioned. Like I loved your point about the Google Maps thing and the GPS in the car. It's there, but you don't necessarily have to utilize it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah. Like it's not like you're, like you said, it's not like you're cuffed into using the software. It's
Yeah.
that the software is more the tool, and if you need the
Yeah.
tool, then you should be comfortable using it.
Exactly, and definitely people needs to see it in real life and to use it at least once. I have seen there was always resistance everywhere, and I was this kind of guy, you know, and like okay, that's funny, that's new to me. But if you showcase it, then people starts to understand and to like it. Honestly, that's just what we experienced everywhere. I can tell you, and I'm not joking or lying, if I tell you everybody who has seen it and used it loves it. Everybody. In terms of terrain park building, you know.
Well, it's a composite, right? Or it's the Hexagon group that's affiliated with that Leica system, and it's a surveying tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that to me has always been like, say for example, when I was at Copper, I always used to see Jake Ingle, who is now he's now the director of operations at Steamboat. Rad dude, and he's been in the game for quite some time, but he always used to pull out the surveying tool that he would use to build the pipe there, and he had it all mapped out and plotted out, and he would just press go, and it was always it was impressive to me. How that went down. Anyway, I think that there's something to be said for not kicking the tires on something before you try it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Don't hate
That's
it.
the point. And I understand totally that if somebody does your presentation on a desk and shows you how amazing the thing is, or you can't tell it even by doing a nice video or whatever, you have to experience it. You have definitely to experience it, and yeah, well, maybe for slope grooming, it is a big help there. In any case as well, but for me, the big eye opener was by building features, just being more efficient, not getting out. Not that I don't like to get out the cat. I like the snow and I like to mess around under a cat and whatever. But it was just more efficient. I could focus really on working on that kicker or on the landing and getting it nice and shiny. And in my personal opinion, you save also if you have projects which need to be built really quick, like the Ski Cross World Cup we built next our headquarters here. I mean, we have 9 days from zero to the first racer. So with 2 cats and quite a long run, and the shapers now can come in and really focus to get the features nice and shiny. And before, sometimes they were maybe more shoveling snow around, you know, and wasting their time in just moving snow. And now they just shape it what they are meant to do. That's why they are called shaper. Otherwise, they would be snow shoveler, right?
Yeah.
So that definitely with the 3D modeling, that helped quite a lot, I would say. There's a funny fact that those service systems, they are known in construction, dirt work construction, they are known since decades. And I never so far experienced any resistance from a bulldozer operator, either a grader operator or an excavator operator to such a. They see it always as a tool which helps them. So the resistance and the systems as we run them today in a CAD, they're just the evolution of those dirt work systems. But it's still kind of funny how much resistance it is, because if you're sure about yourself, or you're confident, or how you call it, and you know that you're doing good things, you see it as just as a new tool what
Yep.
makes your life easier. And I have one really good example, and Paul knows this guy. uh, he's the operator, the local operator in the place we do the ski cross, and he got a brand new light wolf with the snow depth measurement system on, and he helps me building the ski cross, just doing the rough push works. And the second day of pushing around snow, he calls me on the radio, "Hey, Andreas, could you come down, put me some sticks out there?" And I was like, hell, Goki, that's his nickname. I can mention him. He knows the story, and he's laughing about it today. Like, okay, I don't gonna put any freaking stick around this mountain. We are over sticks now.
Yeah.
You have a snow depth measurement system in your cat. I don't even turn it on. I know this mountain summer and winter. I know exactly where every single inch of snow it is, and I don't need this system and da da da. Finally, I went down, turned on the system, spent with him 20 minutes in the cat in the passenger seat just to explain him roughly how does it work. And then I disappeared again, went up to the start section, and suddenly it was some hour. It was in the night. He calls me on the radio. "Andreas, we had some problems with the GSM coverage. So the GSM provider had not networked for maybe half an hour. Hey, Andres, the system doesn't work. How I should push that snow now? And you told me 5 hours ago that you don't need the system." Yeah, well, I thought I don't need it, but now I figured out there are 10 inches more of snow what I could scrape off, and it was funny. And since that day, he used it, and he just loved it.
Yeah.
And he's a guy being there 35 years, like a 200-pound guy. And really, you don't want to argue with this guy. But he realized by himself, Jesus, at the end, it helps me. And as mentioned before, it doesn't move your blade. It
Nope.
just shows you how you should move it,
Yep.
or how you could move it. If you then decide for a different way, you're still able to do it. It's just a tool. Yeah.
Yeah, super rad. Well, huge shout out to Paul for contributing that question. I selfishly enjoyed the intel behind the Leica system, but I also like the story about the ballerina.
I like it. I like it too.
You being who you are, I wanted to know as to whether or not, as somebody who manages, and we'll use a small title there, but manages the demo operators, how are you attempting to improve upon your training program, maybe that's already in place, and you've mentioned that it is, but to help truly show off the machine's capabilities or help the operator?
It's kind of two different topics, because to showcase in the right way our product, I think, since we are quite always the same team of demo operators since several years now, and I'm glad that my guys support my way of surviving, not managing them, but we try to survive on daily basis,
Yeah.
with different challenges. But they stick around me, so that makes me really happy. So the point is to showcase our product. For us, it's a natural process, since we are the first in the company who sit in a new prototype when it gets first time on snow. So that means if something brand new is developed and it touches the first day the snow, it's gonna be one of us to run this thing, in a bad or in a good way, it doesn't matter. And then we grow with the product on daily basis, and experiencing all software updates or changing to a different kind of pumps or different kind of gearboxes, whatever. So we develop. So usually a snowcat is around for about 3 to 4 years as a prototype before it gets into production. So that means when we launch the product, we spend already about 2 to 3 thousand hours each of us in the machine. So that's how you learn the machine, right? And also giving feedbacks how to develop it in a better way, also based on customer feedbacks and whatever. So that's how you grow. You grow with the machine, and that's why we are quite confident that we are able to showcase our product in the best possible way. Of course, all of us can still improve, but we know the product pretty much from the scratch, from the first day when it touches the snow until it gets launched. We know it, so we know also the disadvantages and the advantages of the product, and that's how we try to showcase it then to the customer. I think that's a big advantage of our team we have, and especially being on the glacier all summer long, dealing with all different kind of snow situations, snow conditions, gives you a lot of experience. And that was always my mindset when we hired, because we started that we have been two demo operators in the whole Prino company. One left, went for its own. And then I tried to hire other guys, and I said to the management, yeah, but we need year-round guys. They need to sit in the cat all summer long, and especially knowing the product better and doing better experiences. And that's where the management actually totally committed. They buy it in totally, and I'm glad about it. So that's how we can showcase our product, because we grow literally from the first day on snow with the product. So I think we know how to run this piece of equipment, how explain it to you. We have the deep insights when it gets back to operation, not talking about mechanical knowledge. We are not the best mechanics. We are quite bad mechanics. We can replace stuff, no problem. But if it gets back to the operational part, how is the menu navigation? How does the joystick works? Why would the cat climb better if you raise the suspension in the back or in the front, or you lower it down? That's not because an engineer tells us how does it work better, but because we make the experiences on daily basis from the first day on snow of the piece of equipment.
Yeah,
And
that's deep.
yeah, and how we try to train operators in ski area. I think all of us doing demos, being around the world and seeing so different or many realities, that's how you learn, and that's what fills your box of experience, and that's what we would like to transfer to other operators. That's how we can train them, because if you're stuck in your ski area, I mean, when I left Valgardena as a ordinary groomer, being on my awesome mountain, I mean, freaking awesome mountain, perfect equipment all the time. But then I got into other realities. That was for me a big experience, and all those experiences you pick up, and if somebody is willing to pick up something from you, we are willing to share whatever you would like. And I think for all of us, the best experience is not to get off the hill and, well, this guy bite in that machine. No, the best experience is getting back from the mountain, having maybe a beer in the pub with the operator, and he tells me, fuck Andreas, that was a good evening. It was a good shift. I enjoyed the time with the cat and with you. And yeah, if somebody is willing to learn, we are open to share our experiences without forcing somebody to change his way of doing. We don't get in there with the head through the wall. If you're willing, please make questions how many you want, and we try. And that's how. So it's not a steady improvement of the training by doing seminars or workshops, but it's just being out there and living the daily struggle with all the guys around the mountains. I think that's how you improve your training program.
That's deep too. Yeah, that's a hell of an answer, and a humble one at that too. We've kind of hovered around it the whole conversation, but success doesn't come without failure. And, I know you've already admitted just us talking right now, and I stated even earlier, it's like, whoa, you fail? What? But where do you think that there's the biggest lesson maybe in some of your adventures beyond what we've talked about with mentality, being humble and having the right approach? Where do you think that lesson either occurred, that place? What was maybe the light bulb that went off?
Phew, I think that was many years back in on my home mountain, where I thought, okay, now I'm running a snowcat since 2 years and I know everything,
Mm.
And there was one good moment, and it will stick in my mind forever. So Harry, my butt, was the grooming manager, and I mean he's a tough guy. If I'm a bull, he's twice a bull, full of tattoos, a rocker,
Yeah.
But one of the best cat operators I ever met in my life, without any doubt. Old schooler, and I did run this 240 PB 240, like 11,000 hours on, and cutting the curl cylinder got a little, like it was got a little play. It was getting in and out by 1.5 inch by its own. I was grooming up and down, and my blade was diving in a bad manner, not in a podcast manner. And I
Yeah.
was like, Jesus Christ, this piece of shit. And I went back after the shift and went straight to Harry, and I told him, hey Harry, could we fix this valve block of this, because we knew the issue on the 240 for that. And he just looks at me, you better learn how to run a snowcat. And that was a moment for me. Okay.
Wow.
Maybe he's right. And then I went down another 2,000 hour with that curve cylinder like this, and I tell you, I learned how to deal with that 240 blade. I tell you, what I probably would never have if he wouldn't have gave me that answer. If he
Yeah.
would have fixed it just and and then that was the moment where I realized, okay, don't blame the machine. Try to adapt to the machine.
Mm.
Try to adapt to the machine, not necessarily if it's broken down, of course, but take the disadvantage of the machine, try to convert it to an advantage sometimes. I mean, it sounds a little cheesy, but sometimes it is just like it is. Don't blame it on the machine, blame it on yourself, and try to improve yourself. And yeah, and out of mistakes, I don't know how many million I made, but at least if you realize that you made a mistake and you try to learn out of it, that's already the best. That's the best way you can take.
And I do want to know too. This to me is always my favorite question to ask. But where do you think the future of the snow industry is headed? And I don't know where you can take it wherever. You can go machines. You can go industry broad. You can go climate change. We've had a number of people answer different topics, but or different directions with their answers. Sorry, but where do you think it's headed?
That's a really difficult, that's probably the most difficult question right now. If I see it at the midterm, like the next 20 years, I think so far the climate change for sure gonna affect in a certain way the industry, but not as much as we might think, because so far I went through this now the last 20 years, and I tell you, in the late 80s we had way less snow than we have today,
Mm.
and we had half of the skiing days than we have today. So therefore, with new technologies, snowmaking, whatever, and there are always up and downs so midterm, I don't see that one. What I find a little sad, that in some places the industry develops to something fancy. I
Mm.
would call it really expensive. Something what I really hate is we had a little ski lift in pretty much every village. In every yodel community, we had a tiny ski lift. And those ski lifts, for instance, they disappeared, or many of them disappeared, which doesn't allow us that easy access to a ski slope for the kids anymore, as
Yeah.
we had. We had it just backyard, was pretty much the ski lift. Of course, they weren't that efficient in terms of money and whatever, but it kept the industry, the sport alive, because we got to figure that if we don't have skiers around the mountain, we don't need lifts and we don't need snowcats and we don't need the snowmaking anymore. At the end, it's always the skier who pays off. And as I can see the development, getting those skiers really expensive in terms of lift tickets or whatever, I see rolling hard times. I mean, here it is still less expensive than it is in the US. For example, skiing, I mean, a daily ski pass in Dolomiti Super Ski, it's like $60.
Wow.
And I have like 900 miles of slope at my disposal, you know. I
Wow.
can ski freaking all day and I never hit run twice. So that still keeps it alive for ordinary people just enjoying the mountain. And it shouldn't be something fancy, you know, just for a certain class of people, you know. I hope it doesn't evolve in that direction. I really hope. I really hope. And that's why probably we need to focus also being a little more efficient to keep the costs in a reasonable way, so they can keep still the cost of a ski pass or however you call it in a certain way. In terms of machinery, it's just easy. If I can see the development of the last 20 years, it's just 20 years ago, I could not imagine that we would run something like we do today. It doesn't matter which brand, you know. That's just, and really wondering how does it goes. I think in terms of performance, we will stay on this kind of range because we reached already quite a high level in terms of performance of machines. Definitely it goes in the direction sustainability, environmentally friendly, like hydrogen, electric cats and all that thing. That will be the evolution in terms of machinery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always an interesting topic to have each person unpack and where they think things are headed and what's going to happen and points of view for that matter. But I agree in this sense. I think it would be really cool to see us as a industry as a whole advocate for the accessibility. Whether
Yeah.
that's a point of sale price that makes sense at a ticket counter, or
Yeah.
a contactless ticket counter nowadays with the machines that are printing them, or whether that's a experience that's not, or we do that by creating an experience that is very much, I don't know, I would say genuine but not gold. And I think that
Yeah.
once we start to get more towards that top tier platinum experience that folks are selling, it becomes concerning. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
I love where the machines are going. I definitely think that that's an interesting standpoint altogether. I'm fascinated with how brands are capitalizing on greener energy. Yeah, carbon footprint decreasing. Yeah, as much as it
I'm a
possibly
good
can.
example with my Suburban, right?
Well, I think hopefully one day we can link up and I can actually see the bourbon in person and look at
That
it.
would
And
be great.
I
I
would
would drive you around the Dolomites, no question.
I would love it. I would love it. Well, we've been chatting for quite some time, and I'm so grateful again that you've made the time to link up with me and create an episode and get your voice out there. And I'm grateful again that you wanted to do it. And so for that, I say thank you so much.
I really appreciate it, Parker, and I'm grateful to have been able to be part of it and tell a little out of my story box. So I hope most of the people enjoyed it and hope to see you somewhere around the mountain someday.
Huge thank you to Andreas Silbernagl for being this week's Blade Dive Podcast episode. If you want to know how you can support the podcast, follow us on social media at The Blade Dive. give us a shout, drop us a line, send us a message, tag us in your photos, show us what you got going on your shift. And again, as always, thank you for bringing us along for the ride if you're working tonight, today, or wherever you are. And please remember, don't be a dick. Fill up your machine with diesel at the end of your shift, please.